All right, I'm very happy to present today Director for Ajegba, who was appointed by Governor Whitmer as Director of the Michigan Department of Transportation on January 1st, 2019. Under his leadership, MDOT has championed electric and autonomous vehicle innovations, works on safety initiatives and construction delivery efficiencies, such as bridge building program. He has guided the department's focus on diversity and inclusion efforts by establishing the chief culture, equity, and inclusion officer position within his leadership team. Director Ajegba oversaw the planning, design, and building of several major projects, where one was nominated for America's Transportation Award and landed among the top 10 national finalists. He also established MDOT's Historical Black College and University (HBCU) Transportation Diversity and Recruitment Program (TDRP). He is a licensed professional engineer in the state of Michigan, holding a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Prairie View A&M University and a master's degree in Construction Management from the University of Michigan. Please welcome Director Ajegba.
Thank you, Katu. Good afternoon, everybody. Board Member Ford and the rest of the faculty staff for inviting me to speak to you today about some of the things that's going on in that, and quite frankly, how the professional civil engineering is slowly going through what I call a paradigm shift. So my presentation today is going to be focused on several areas. First, I'll give you an idea of how MDOT is structured, how we able to serve the state. Talk a little bit about infrastructure investment. I tell people this is probably the most exciting time in my career to be a civil engineer or be in the infrastructure business, because there's so much emphasis now, not just from our dynamic governor, but from Washington about infrastructure. Because quite frankly, that is one area that's been neglected so long. There's been so much underinvestment in infrastructure for a while now that the signs are beginning to show. So there's a renewed focus on it, and that's a good thing. I'm going to talk a little bit about equitable and safer mobility. What do I mean by that? Equitable mobility, for most of us who have cars, we don't think about, how do we get from point A to point B? How do we, if you're going to see it in my example, that having an affordable, good transportation system should not be about how well off you are, or how it should be something that is readily available for everybody. And that, to me, is one of the challenges that I believe we will face moving forward. And then safer mobility, I'm really envious of the next generation. I think they're going to change the world, because the technology it's just coming so fast. And I even told the dean while we were having a sidebar conversation in his office that cars are now like computers on wheels. So many gadgets in cars that when we were growing up, we never even thought that's possible. And that's just the start of it. The revolution into electric vehicle is another big thing. And then I'll talk a little bit about our mentor-protege program, part of what we designed to bring equity into our contracting system, so we can get small businesses and disadvantaged businesses involved in the contracting process and give them opportunity to also experience some of these good times. And then the last piece is, the dean mentioned, the Tdrp program. We started this program probably about 9 years ago now, with about 4 students from HBCU school, Morehouse in Atlanta. And now, last summer, we had about 59 students coming to Michigan. And our program is growing quite a bit. We're using it as part of our recruitment pipeline program, and we're beginning to see success. What we ended up doing 2 years ago is we made it not just an MDOT program, we made it also for the consulting industry, because we're all having the same workforce challenge. Why not be inclusive? So again, you're going to see some of the examples of why that program, I think it's necessary, and it's continued to do what we was designed to do. So about our MDOT structure, we are divided into 7 regions across the state of Michigan. Right on the Upper Peninsula there, the Superior is one region. And then you come down, the North region is Cadillac, Traverse City area. Bay region is Saginaw area, and then Mount Pleasant is all included. The Grand is Grand Rapids. Then Southwest region is in the Kalamazoo, Marshall area. Then you have Jackson, which covers Washtenaw. I used to be the region engineer in Jackson. Covers Washtenaw, Monroe, Ingham County, and then Metro region covers Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne County. So that's how our regions are all kind of divided, so we can serve the people of the state effectively. We have 21 what we call transportation service centers that are located closer to the community. So if you are a businessman that wants to open up a gas station off of Washtenaw Avenue, and you need a permit to put a driveway there, you don't have to drive all the way to Lansing or to Jackson for that matter. You can go to Brighton, or they can come to you and walk the area with you and try to help you find a better way to address your issue, give you the permit. So even though we have the 7 regions, within those 7 regions, there's also what we call 21 service centers, so more like satellite offices. And we found out to be an effective way to serve our community for a while now, and it seems to be working. So I wanted to share this slide because last year was a historic year for MDOT. Last year was the year we spent the most amount of money on infrastructure in the history of the state of Michigan. And I've been with MDOT now almost 32 years. Well, how are we able to achieve this? The governor, when she came in 2019, January, and as you know, her campaign promise was we're going to fix the roads because the roads were so bad, people losing tires. I had a friend of mine before the governor came in, he lost 2 tires within a month in different locations. I mean, that is honestly a tax, right? So the governor's promise was, we're going to fix these roads. And she worked hard, got us $3.5 billion in bond. So go out there and fix the roads. So what you see here is we spent $2.6 billion last year, and that equates to about 33,420 jobs in the state that either created or supported by this $2.6 billion. So the point is that when you invest in infrastructure, you're creating jobs, you're giving opportunities. Obviously, I'm only focused on that 2.6 billion, but there were other things that we did throughout the whole year to make it a very successful and historic year. Even though we had the pandemic going, everybody in 2020, we all had to adjust to new ways of doing things, right? We had consultants out there. Our design unit are used to all working together in the office. Now everybody had to go home, and we had to provide them with the tools they need to be able to work from home and do Zoom meetings with each other and getting plans out there. And I tell you, I'm still so proud of our workforce because we were resilient, we were flexible enough to be able to achieve something like this. So I can't thank the people of the employees of MDOT enough. What I wanted to show with this slide is to kind of show you that last year we spent $2.6 billion, supported 33,000 jobs. This year we will spend $3.5 billion, even more, in the middle of a pandemic. And there's more money coming from Washington. So the challenges are just, great. So we have a workforce issue right now that we need more engineers. We need the expertise to help us meet all these challenges. Believe me, I tell people, I think we're like the dog that finally caught the cat. We've been complaining for so long. We're running after the cat, we finally caught it. So now what are we gonna do? My hope is that when we're done spending all this money, we can show the public that if you invest in infrastructure, this is what you get. So that effort is continuing, and again, the dollar you invest in infrastructure relates to jobs, and I think that's very clear. So I want to talk a little bit about equitable mobility. What does that mean to say equitable mobility? Meaning people should be able to move around from point A to point B, regardless of your status, whether you're wealthy or not. Most people, there's a misnomer out there. They think that only poor people uses public transportation. And I work hard to dispel that notion. When I go to Washington for meetings, what I normally do, I get off the plane, I walk across the street, I get on the metro. Metro, pay $4, $5, and it gets you into downtown instead of paying $25 for Uber. Not that I don't use Uber sometimes, but my first preference is to use the metro. So again, equitable mobility to me is something that we have to be able to provide that so people can have access to goods and services. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a paradigm shift going on in transportation. It's not about MDOT just going out there building infrastructure anymore. It's about how we all use the infrastructure in our lives for jobs, education, and recreation. The public is now demanding that don't just build highways and bridges, put sidewalk there, 10, 12-foot sidewalks, so that if my friend and I are walking, we can walk side by side, not walking behind each other because you're building a 4-foot sidewalk, right? Look about it's about public health. People want to get out and ride their bikes, create a bike lane, create a path where people can go jogging, right? These are things that the public is now beginning to demand. So we find ourselves having to change our delivery model to being a multimodal organization instead of just highways and bridges department. And I think that is the right thing to do for equity. So what are the characteristics of equitable transportation system? It has to promote healthy, safe, and inclusive communities by investing in affordable transportation options. Invest equitably and focus on results. You got to include the whole community. When we're talking about what we're going to do with Washington Avenue right in front of you here, and I was at a meeting the other day, we have a document out there saying, reimagine Washington, right? What the community is saying is, don't just come here, just put back what was there. We want you to take another look at, maybe we don't want 5 lanes anymore. Maybe we want 3 lanes. Use the other 2 lanes to make it a bike lane, make it a wider sidewalk, so everybody can enjoy Washington Avenue in the future. And that is a big paradigm shift to somebody like me. When I was in college, in my younger years, we were trained that level of service A is good. Level of service A means you design a roadway for cars to be moving fast. Now the community is saying, no, we don't want that anymore. We want a level of service F. F is bad. F means, it's congestion, it's crawling. But they say, well, yeah, that's what we want. We want people to get out of their cars and walk around to the restaurants and shopping and all that. So the 5 lanes you see on Washington Avenue now, we're involving the community. We may not end up with 5 lanes. We may end up with 3 lanes based on what the community wants. It's about being inclusive, to get to where you have general consensus, you got to include the community in what you do. And that has not always been the case for us. So I want to tell you a story about this corner health clinic right here in our backyard in Ypsilanti. This is where I think you'll be able to relate more to what I mean by equitable mobility. University of Michigan, and I was only about 10 miles away from Ypsilanti, give or take, 8 to 10 miles, right? They have the Tubman Center, the big university hospital. It's one of the best teaching hospitals in the country. So close to Ypsilanti, but it's still so far away. There are a lot of underserved community in Ypsilanti that can't get to that hospital because they don't have cars. Again, for us who have cars, we don't think about it. We just jump in our cars and go wherever we want to go. There are some people that can't afford that. When I was on the AATA board several years ago, we voted to extend transit to Ypsilanti. And we thought it was a good thing because we know there's some students that are going to U of M, but they can't afford to live in Ann Arbor. They want to live in Ypsilanti, but with bus system is good for both communities, right? Or quite frankly, in the summertime, we realize that a lot of the U of M students are working in restaurants and shops. They go home, you have labor shortage. Bringing people in and out is a good thing. It's good for both communities. So we did that. The story of this clinic is unique in the sense that we decided to build this clinic to be closer to the underserved community in Ypsilanti. But the Ann Arbor transportation system that we designed in those days is fixed route. It doesn't go into the neighborhoods, right? So if you don't have a car, you may still need to walk about 3-4 miles to get to that bus stop, to take the bus to get to where you need to go. So the idea was to put this clinic in the community. But what you find out is that, again, these are some of the tenets of the clinic. It's judgment-free, affordable health, wellness care, healthcare and support services for youth 12 to 25, physical, sexual, reproductive, mental health, non-health service resources. But what you find out is, I'm going to go to, again, AATA services Ypsilanti. But the issue became a lot of no-shows when this clinic was built because we did not think about microtransit. How do we get people that don't have cars from their home to this clinic, right? Ann Arbor has a microtransit system. It's called the A-Ride. When I was I tell you, Ann Arbor is an affluent community that is very socially conscious community. Ann Arbor is the only city I know that votes for millage, for library, for transit, for schools, for you name it. That's why I love it there. I love living there because it's not about just you, it's about the entire community, right? So they have what you call microtransit. It's called A-Ride. For the underserved community in Ann Arbor, you can take the A-Ride and it's subsidized by the people of the city of Ann Arbor. But Ypsilanti doesn't have that luxury. So you built this clinic without that thought in mind, and you've seen a lot of no-shows. With that, then we were approached by the University of Michigan, Humphrey. I hope someday once we get the civil engineering program here at Eastern to where we have our sea legs under us, we can start engaging the Eastern Michigan University in this kind of initiative. Because what they did is come to, let me see, okay, very high patient no-show rate, insufficient mobility options available, lower socioeconomic communities. That's what the clinic was built to serve. But because they don't have the means to get to that clinic, they're not showing up. So they approached Humphrey, University of Michigan Transportation Research Institute, to say, we got this problem, how can you help us solve it? So they approached MDOT, because I know the director of Humphrey. So what can you do to help us create a microtransit system in Ypsilanti to help service this clinic. I think the idea of the clinic is a great idea, but we miss one piece, which is how do you transport your patient in and out of there? So we're working on that now. That to me is an example of where equitable mobility has to be part of a new DNA. We just can't think about what, the way we used to think about transportation is evolving, and I think it has to be an inclusive process. Yeah, just kind of showing some of the demographics of the people that the community serve in Ypsilanti, without going into a whole lot of the details. The very deep purple, there's 46 to 85% below poverty level, and then you can see the breakdown. So it was well intentioned. And we're going to solve the problem. We're going to help them put a microtransit system together to serve the community, because I think rising tide lifts all boats. So these are the solutions that we're looking at. EV shuttle service to pick up return patients to defined neighborhoods on specific days and times. Shuttle can also be used to distribute non-perishable food. There are people that cannot get to the grocery store. They can't afford to call a taxi to come take them to the grocery store. Do we leave them behind, or do we design a transportation system that serves everybody? Community-based ride service under consideration for non-scheduled visits. Multidisciplinary team of, as I mentioned, 213 faculty and 8 U of M students are looking at it, they're studying this issue. Now, our next step is, I think we've identified some of the things we need to do. Our next step now is to apply for grants and get this service going. And AATA is going to be a part of that conversation. This is just an example of what microtransit looks like in rural communities. Some rural communities do have microtransit. And you can call, or again, roughly, this is Calhoun County, about roughly 136,000 county residents and primary, it's a rural area. And 16% of residents are over the age of 65. Not everybody can afford to retire to Florida. All right? No, seriously, what are we going to do about that population? Right? It's still got to move around. To me, again, it's about public health. I don't think we've ever tied the two together before. So these are some of the things that we engineers that grew up in those days never really thought about. We just build roadways and bridges and walk away. So I want to talk a little bit about safer mobility. That when near misses don't count. When I was a young engineer at MDOT, I used to have a boss that says that near misses don't count. And what that means is that if, for instance, you're driving through an intersection, you almost got hit or you almost had a crash, and you call our office and say, hey, you need to put a signal at this intersection or stop sign because I almost got in a crash. We have what you call a spot file. We'll go look in the spot file. Or there's nobody's ever, you're the only first person that ever called about this issue. That means there's no problem. So why bother? So that's reactive engineering. Again, that's one of those paradigm shifts that I'm talking about that we are beginning to look at. These are the numbers of crashes that we had in the country last year. We signed a document saying we all in the engineering, civil engineering profession in all state DOTs, we're going to try to strive for zero death, towards zero death on our freeways and roadways. And we've done a lot of things to try to get to that, but we're still having these kind of numbers. Look at the number in 2020 in Michigan, 245,000. With all the tools we've put in place, we're still having that. Look at some of the safety things we've done. We've put delineation out there. We are reflective stripes on all stop and yield signs to keep trying to encourage 6-inch lane lines, and those used to be 4-inch when I first started at MDOT. We have cable medium barrier now where it prevents crossover accidents. If you're driving on the freeway, you'll see these cable guardrails. It's because sometimes people are driving distracted, sleepy, whatever the case may be. And I mean, the next thing you know, they cross over to the other side and take out the oncoming vehicle. So we start putting them out there just for that. But we didn't start putting them out, we put them out there based on data. Well, we look at our records, these corridor, this stretch of roadway, looks like we've had about 5 crossover accidents in the last 5 years. Yeah, we should put one in. Right? And that was the way we did engineering. But now the public is saying no. And the tools are there for us to do a lot of proactive engineering, not reactive. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what can we do to reduce that number drastically. And I think connected autonomous vehicle is the next best thing because it takes the human error risk out of it. Yeah, perhaps it's still growing on some people. What does that mean? That means I have to give up control of my vehicle, let the vehicle run itself. People are still not willing to get to level 5. But we are technically at level 3 and 4. There are 5 levels. Let me back up. There are 5 levels of autonomous vehicle. When you get to level 5, that means that car is practically driving itself, right? I think we are at level 3 and 4 now to a point. Again, when I said these cars are like computer on wheels, that's what's going on. I mean, when you're backing up now, the car makes noise and you get close to an object, right? You can see in some cars, when you veer off the road, it starts shaking when you hit the pavement mark, and that means you need to get back in alignment. So these are little tools that are already in our vehicles to help us reduce these crash numbers. But it's still very high. There are a lot of pedestrian and vehicle crashes out there. But there are things that we're doing to help that. The road weather alert system is another one. And then the other one is the driver assist, lane keeping systems and AV emergency braking, some of the things that I've talked about. So putting all these tools in vehicles will help reduce some of the human errors. But the biggest thing to me, I think, is as this technology evolves, how do you get the buy-in from the general public that, yeah, perhaps a well-equipped vehicle is more error-free than myself controlling that vehicle. Again, these are just some more examples of some of the benefits of that. So I mentioned earlier that near misses don't count. This is an example of that. As most of you know, Hot Plaza in the summertime in downtown Detroit is a very popular place. Concerts going on, people want to go to the riverfront, and it's a very, Jefferson Avenue is a very busy place. And you got to cross Jefferson Avenue to get to Hot Plaza. So a few years ago, a startup company out of Dubai reached out to us, say, we would like to put what you call DSRC, Designated Short Range Communication Unit, one of your worst intersections, pick one. We knew we had an issue on Randolph and Jefferson Avenue. So they put the system there, and we monitored it from June 24 to July 21. That's almost a month, less than a month. And as you can see on the screen, what that is showing is what is going on in that intersection. When I was coming up in engineering, we didn't have that. You call and say, I almost got hit. Well, you didn't get hit. Why should I bother? Right? That's near misses don't count. But now we're saying near misses do count. By putting that unit out there, it helps us to understand what is it that's causing a lot of these crashes. And as you can see on the right, let me see. the total count violation is about 12,000. Average speed is 49 miles per hour. We counted that, let me go back. I think 37 crashes, 33 of those 37 could have been avoided. Again, that's no proactive engineering, which means, in the past, if you don't have this kind of tool, you don't know what to fix unless you go and sit out there all day and observe, right? Now we know it could be a side distance problem, a geometrics problem, it could be the signal head. The signal head is not, big enough or visible enough. What is causing all these crashes? This helps us to take a look at it and redesign that. You can see that heat map there. That picture on the left kind of says it all. So low severity was 2,100, and high severity 181. How do we make sure that we prevent those kind of crashes as we try to work towards zero death? These are some of the other tools we've done in the past. They do not end a sign. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard. You see people go down the wrong way on the ramp easily. And the next thing you know, they're on the freeway and they're trying to self-correct, but then it's too late. And I'm coming to, because then you're gonna have a head-on collision. I remember maybe about 3 or 4 years ago, there's a family that was coming home for Memorial Day from Wisconsin. And we had a drunk driver go down the wrong way on a ramp on Ford Road on M14, right by my house. And it was, very heartbreaking because it was a 4-family, a boy and a girl and husband and wife coming home to Detroit to spend time with family, and 2 of them died. I think the mother and the daughter died. The boy and the father survived because of somebody driving drunk. I would argue that an autonomous vehicle probably would not have gone down that path, because if it's designed right, that would not happen. That are two lives that probably will still be here with us today. So with all these tools and everything we are doing to try to reduce that number, again, I still think perhaps we will see a bigger reduction when we get to true level 4, level 5. This is something we're beginning to put out there for wrong way driving, to kind of alert drivers of the fact that you are going the wrong way, turn around, please turn around, don't get on the freeway. And then again, transitioning from reactive to proactive, as I mentioned, information dissemination at intersection. We have what you call a freeway courtesy patrol, and then economic and social savings, cost reduction, and other related issues. When you do proactive engineering, these are some of the benefits of that. So I want to talk a little bit about workforce development. We did mention we have what you call Tdrp. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. But we at MDOT looked at this opportunity for all this money coming in as a way to not only solve the big companies, but also to help users to develop the smaller disadvantaged businesses. Because we don't want to look back in 5, 10 years when this boom is done, that what did we do with this money? Who actually benefited from this? Did we make sure that everybody got a chance to experience the opportunity? So we started this mentor protege a few years ago. And the way the program works is that we have in MDOT what you call pre-qualification. That means before you can say, I'm a design engineering company, I want to design roads. You got to show us that you have the professional engineering license, you have the money to back up your company, on and on and on and on. These to us, we see as a barrier as to why small companies cannot grow. And quite frankly, sometimes they go out of business because all the requirements is just too much for them. So we decided, okay, well, it's like the chicken and the egg. Well, I'm not going to give you a job because you don't have the pre-qualification. But I can't get the pre-qualification if you don't give me a job. So it was one of those things we said, okay, well, how about we do this? We will waive the pre-qualification. We work with the Federal Highway Administration, and actually this program has been looked at as something that could be emulated in other states. Is to say, okay, we will let you work under an experienced engineering firm. You get pre-qualification credit, you make money, you can hire people, right? So you get rid of that chicken and the egg thing. And in the meantime, you're slowly building your business. So what does that mean? Number of projects successfully completed. We have a lot of measurable success stories. Number of proteges contracted. So it's like the big guys are the mentor, the small businesses are the proteges. So even though you may already know how to design a job, but you can still be a protege because you don't have that all the tools you need to stand on your own. So this is a way of trying to lift us with climbing, is what I call it. And we have about 18 companies that are approved to be a mentor, to be a protege right now. And these are very small companies in Michigan that are taking advantage of this opportunity. This slide here just kind of show the distribution of projects to date. We have about our university region is the office in Jackson. We have about 19 mentor protege projects. So this is more of a distribution of it. So, I mean, take a look at 32 awarded protege subcontracts worth over $7.1 million. In the past, we probably would not have even come anywhere close to that. Again, these are just, this pie chart just kind of showing some of the distribution and feedback. We did a survey to see, okay, how's this program going? You guys like it or you don't like it? What should we do better? And this is just kind of showing what the feedback we got back. The mentor protege is beneficial to the local community by allowing new firms to work on government contracts under the wing of prime contractors as they learn and work on specific projects within our state. And I think that is what equity is about. And inclusion, try to be inclusive of what you do in all aspects. Try to create programs and create opportunities. So the Dean mentioned about the TDRP, the Transportation Diversity Recruitment Program. To me, I think in the next 5 years, this is going to be one of our major challenges, this workforce. How do we get the workforce we need to meet the challenges? And I think it'd be a shame we have all these opportunities, but we don't have the expertise to do them. So we started this program about 8-9 years ago, and the idea was, I'm a product of HBCU school. I did my undergrad at HBCU Purview and then University of HBCU. And when I was in school, I didn't have the opportunity to work in an engineering firm in the summertime. When during the summer, I go work at McDonald's, make a little money, then go back to school in the fall. That's how I got myself through college. But I felt that the opportunity for students to learn the skills they need when they get out is huge. Quite frankly, you have the basic knowledge, but not being able to connect that's the theoretical part. The practical side of getting out there, working with an engineer, and them holding you right hand, showing you things for the whole summer. I think it's a huge difference when you come out of college. You not only learn your skills, you also learn your work ethics, right? I mean, you got to get up early in the morning and get to that job. Not because you're in college, it's a totally different schedule than when you work in a professional environment. So we try to teach them all that. But the point is that, again, this program, we started it a few years ago, as I mentioned, with 4 students. And last year, we ended up with about 59 students in Michigan. And I believe 30 of those students work for MDOT, or no, 30 work for consultant, and the other 29 work for MDOT. These are all the companies in Michigan that are part of this program. We went to them 2 years ago, and everybody embraced it. We said, listen, you have a workforce problem, and diversity is a big thing. How about you come in with us? Let's work together. We'll bring the students in. The way the program works is we bring them in, we put them on the area universities. We started with U of M years ago, and we give them a job. We give them transportation to get to and from work. I mean, that's a good deal. And they work, they get experience, they go back. We may not be able to hire all 59 of them, but they can work in engineering in other states. We've had instances where consultants have called us from other states and say, this student said they work in your program, what do you think? We'd like to hire them. And we'll give them good recommendation and they get hired. So they are still in our industry, right? And that to me is a win. It's not about us training them for us. Obviously, we'd like to be able to hire all of them, but it's just not practical. Some don't want to live in Michigan. But you will be so surprised when they come to Michigan, the environment here compared to where they are down south. They're like, we've never been out of down south. This is different. And that's a good thing. Expose our young ones to different culture of the country. So this is one of our students that participated in the program and gave a good testimony about it, which is, I think, I don't think I can.
Hello, everybody. My name is Richard M. I am a junior civil engineering major from the illustrious Howard University. And the reason why I chose Howard is because of the opportunities that will be at Howard. One of those opportunities turned out to be the MDOT Tdrp program. I went there the summer of 2021, stayed out there for 3 months, and I worked with the company SOMAT Engineering. And I'd say the big takeaway, if I had one word to describe it all, would be rigorous. I was pushed, and I, was learning in the field, and I got to look at the numbers, the data sheets, and it was not easy at first. But the nurturing from MDOT, the workshops that they had, and also from the company that I was working with, SOMAT, I was able to, by the second month, I really knew, and I was very confident. This program is absolutely amazing, and I had a wonderful time being there. And hopefully that I can inspire some of my peers to also go out. I know Michigan's far, but it's worthwhile, and I had a great time. Thank you.
Great. So again, we're using this program also as a recruiting pipeline, and the consultants are doing the same thing. Some of the students, they offer them a permanent position before they leave. And that's the competition we're seeing for workforce across the country. So we have to find creative ways to stay in the game, or else the talents are just not here. So we got to go wherever they are to get them and encourage them to come to Michigan. So these are some of the students that got offered a permanent position this last time. Again, 2022, we're looking to replicate what we did last year, about 59, 60 students. And we are in the recruiting process right now. The program is getting out there, it's getting more and more competitive. So we may end up with about 200 applicants, and we bring in 60. I think that is good. That means we try to create an environment where it's not just you apply, you get in. You still got to prove that you're going to come and you're going to do the work. As you heard the young man said, he was challenged. That's what we told the companies, even our internal managers. Don't just put them in the corner and give them a spec book to read. You're not doing them any service. You're not doing MDOT because when these kids go back, they're going to talk bad about you, that I went to Michigan, I was there for 3 months, and I didn't learn anything. As you can hear him, he was challenged. We put him out there, work with contractors, give him real life experience. And I think, again, it's the way you prepare them for the future. So with that, again, I want to thank the Dean, see the president's here, thank you. Board member, thank you, and faculty, thank you for having me here today. I hope I'm able to kind of shed light on some of the things we're doing to bring equity and inclusion into the way we do things in MDOT. So again, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's open now. We open the floor for questions. Very interesting presentation on how we integrate diversity, equity, and inclusion in engineering and technology disciplines, especially in at the state level. Any questions from the audience here? I know we're Mr. McDowell will be helping me with questions via chat, but let's start with the room here.
Hi, you mentioned providing accurate systems for road weather. I was wondering if you work with Google Maps in similar places, because as you said, it might be our generation, but we also would like to launch on those things. So we would know what are the first roads that are solved in cloud. Type in, how do you get there? And if you work with them, you know, that would probably help for the safety as well.
As a matter of fact, we're having a conversation with Google about not just that, but several initiatives. Again, our profession is changing so much. We are trying to provide that service and also change the way we do business. It's a good idea to be able to provide drivers with information ahead of time, knowing that we got a squall, snows were coming, slow down, I'll take a different route. I don't know if you guys remember, maybe about 5 years ago, we had that about 90 people power on 994 to Kalamazoo. Miraculously, there were no fatalities. And then we had one of those trucks carrying fireworks, it was like 4th of July. And so if that kind of information is put out there, everybody knows the slow down. Since that incident, we've done a lot of things to obviously put out more weather related information. But these are the kind of things that I think again, to get to that towards zero death, we're almost going to also have to do this.
Any other questions? Khalid?
Yeah.
Hi. You start picking up, right?
Right.
All those who are listening, deal with that and support the three.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, that was a great question. And we are so fortunate that, again, here in Michigan, all the OEMs are here in government, right? So when they say we're going to do CAV, we don't have a choice. It's not like, you know, a different state down south where, well, yeah, we'll get to that eventually. We have to match lockstep with them because we have to provide the infrastructure for them to be able to test those materials and try. M-City, I was the project engineer for M-City. M-City is a joint venture between MDOT and the University of Michigan. Then we built SCM. These are all in response to the automakers' challenges. So on the EV issue, yes, right now MDOT is very, very much involved in what kind of infrastructure are we going to provide for EVs. Michigan State is doing a study for us. What would be the most logical places to put charging stations, right? And some of them are going to be on our right, so that a vehicle, the challenge the government gave us is, I want a seamless operation. If I'm driving from Ann Arbor into Illinois, as you get into Illinois, there should be still a charging station somewhere. So we're working with Illinois, we're working with Ohio, and again, trying to create a network of charging stations. And the other big thing I would say, I don't know if you guys saw the announcement that the government made, maybe about 2 weeks or so ago, where we're gonna have charging, wireless charging on the pavement. First of its kind in the country. Michigan is leading that. But these are some of the challenges that MDOT has been put in the forefront. You have to do this with that to give them support to what the other industry do, or else they're gonna go somewhere else. So the here in Michigan, we gotta help support them to stay here. And, yes, we are involved. That should be revolution. So I think our role will probably be.
Let's go, see, do we have questions on, from,
There's just a couple questions that Dr. Suleiman answers submitted. This first question is, does MDOT have an internship for construction management and civil engineering students?
Absolutely. Yes, the TDRP that I mentioned is just one aspect. We have what's called capsule program as well for in-state students where, you know, again, I'm going to be talking to the NIMCA too about that, how we can work together to bring some of your civil engineering students or construction engineering students, frankly, to be part of our summer program. Because I think, you know, whatever we can do to keep comparing Michigan.
Another one he asks is, does MDOT have scholarships?
That I can say we do, but we do have what you call a pilot program. If you're already an MDOT employee and decided to go back to school, we'll give you some days off and also provide a few dollars of help to get you to school.
let's go back to the,
The program will end up the tax rate competition for middle and high school. I know it was on hold because of the pandemic. Is it coming back? And I have a follow-up question.
Yes, we actually try to do it this April, May, but again, with the numbers of when they are, we had to hold up on it. But yes, that's a very good program that I mean, it kind of introduces young high school students to bridge building. Yes, engineering, and we hope to once things get better, we're going to bring it back.
And my follow-up question on that is, I observed that program for many years that I was involved in. And I noticed that more affluent communities send more competition participation, less participation from inter-city high school.
Yeah, well, we're looking to change that. Again, it's all about inclusive. What part of what we've done the last few years is have workforce development coordinators in each of our regional offices, and put in schools to be part of the TRUEMU program as well, like Metro, which is Wayne County, Detroit area, and Wilton and home, and now we're putting after the pandemic, we have seen better numbers.
any other questions from,
Dr. Ahmed asks in regards to electric vehicle development, is there any specific battery technology that MDOT is favoring over another?
We can't. We have to stay neutral. We love them all.
Khalid?
So you spoke about safety, but from the infrastructure of the road side, how is it not looking to better our roads condition? I was talking about how does it get to that roads?
So, as I said earlier, I think this is probably the best time to be in our industry, right? Because we need emphasis and focus on infrastructure. It's not that MDOT was not designing or building good roads. It is because of this investment for a long time. One of the things that I struggled when I first became director, is that when I could speak to people, they say, you don't build good roads. You build that road you built 5 years ago, it's falling apart. Why should we trust you that you're going to build it right? And what I try to tell them is that there are different fixes. If you don't have money to fix it right, that's why the government that you mentioned, we're going to fix it right the first time. What we end up doing is we just skim off a little bit of the top and put it back and put back, let's say 3 inches. Structurally, you haven't done anything. You just kind of swimming up the ride. And then in 5 years, all the cracks start coming up. So people think when you do that fix, they think you fix the problem. And then when they start seeing cracks, they say you're wasting money, you're not using the right material, contractors, came in, all that stuff. And we have to dispel those rumors that reconstructing a roadway is different from doing a milling. And that was a big challenge. But again, I give the government a lot of credit. We picked 49 projects, $35 billion. They said, reconstruct all these roads. I want these projects to outlast the life of the bond. Because it was a bond, $2.5 billion bond for 25-year period. And the projects that we did will be 30-year payment before we start doing some more repairs and all that. So that means it's a good return on investment instead of doing minor fixes. That's a big challenge for us as a profession to make that to explain that to the public.
Lisa?
Can you talk about roundabouts? Are people still freaking out about roundabouts, or do you think they're adapting to them better? And are there plans for a lot more of them?
I think people are actually getting used to roundabouts. When we first started doing that, there was a lot of people complaining about it. But the engineering of roundabout was obviously keep traffic moving, you use each other, you're not going to forward stop when you're having a lot of, angle collision. So in that regard, I think it's helped reduce prices on that roadway. But it's one of those things that it takes getting used to. But we're not building as much of them anymore, but where it's applicable, we still try.
Thank you.
And you like them? Do I like them? Well, I think they work. They do work. Well, the one thing I will say, there's one of Ajegba and 14 mile, and it's like double, triple runs. People just, I know somebody that live not too far from them. I never go. I find a different way to avoid. But they do work.
If you have a question, yeah, Vicky.
First of all, thank you very, very much for taking your time to be able to serve the university. Wanted to touch upon just materials. Obviously, the job that you have in Michigan is electric and some building freeways in the southern states. So can you kind of touch upon the materials and some of the studies that you're doing? Michigan winners, some winners.
Yeah, that probably is one of those misnomers again, as I mentioned, that people think like the right material, not designing the right or building. And I would hear people say, well, I just came from Ohio. How come their roads are way better than yours? So I have a friend, and it's a joke. We're carpooling from Chicago, and I was sleeping, and my friend is driving, and I knew when we got to Michigan because that pavement woke me up. Funny. But the point is, these states do invest more money in their infrastructure than we did. I mean, Ohio spent, if I remember the number correctly, like 2-3 years, we spent about over $1 billion a year more than we do on their roadways. We have a government that's very committed to fixing our infrastructure. We're just beginning to ramp up, our investment in our infrastructure. The materials, again, I don't think it's any different from Ohio or Illinois or Wisconsin. It's just the investment level was not there.
Region 4.
Director, thank you for being here. Thank you, sir. Could you explain, talk a little bit about the US 23 flex lane, the technology and innovation around that, and we'll be seeing more of that type of innovation.
Thank you. Yes, that was a project that I tell you, I was really proud to be a part of that project. I was the lead on that job when I did it. The beauty of a project like that is that it's a cost savings project to still accomplish the same result, right? Everybody, if you ever during that US 23 program, we know when it was 2 lanes. If you come in and turn out in the morning from Brighton, it's a parking lot. God help you, there's a fender bender, you'll be out there for a week, you'll be late for work. So there was a 3-hour problem, like 6 to 9 or 7 to 10, give or take, coming in southbound. And then in the evening when you're going home, it's like 4 to 7 p.m. But at noon, if you're driving through there, I mean, there's no traffic. So there was an outcry about, MDOT, you gotta do something, And for us to widen that roadway, I can tell you that the flex road has been built now for 5-6 years. If we were trying to widen that roadway, we probably would not have built it right now because of the environmental issues. We have some endangered species in that corridor, like Mississauga rattlesnake. You have a cemetery, you have to buy those properties, you have to mitigate a school further down. So a lot of those kind of environmental issues are very, very tough challenges to overcome. So what we did was that we said, okay, we have some room in the middle there. Why don't we collapse, build a wider shoulder and put, so that in the morning, and put those gantries overhead. So that in the morning when somebody's coming into another, they can use that as a lane, but for that short period of time. And then when traffic dies down, it goes back to the shoulder. And same thing in the evening, when you're leaving, you use it as a shoulder, as a lane, and then again. That was the first one we've done in Michigan, but other states have done, I think Virginia has done it. So anyway, we did it, and it cost, I believe, around $20 million to do that job. And one of the things that's never been told about that project is that before we did that job, we did about public meetings. And the review we got that we're going to do this is brutal. No way. I got called so many names on social media. 87% of the people who drive that car said, no, this is a bad idea. We want you to put a real third lane and on and on and on. So the 10% approval rating, we decided we're going to do it anyway. Now we are looking at extending it all the way to 96. And people are just asking and begging, please extend it. This is the greatest idea since sliced bread, right? Now the rating is almost 70% for us going more. Again, look at the cost savings, $120 million. We got it done on time, and $400 million that could even be way more. And we're still trying to negotiate the property and the endangered species, the environmental issue, and the cemetery that's right there by the rest of it. Can you imagine how again, I've been involved in one project where we had to relocate the cemetery, but not the whole cemetery, just some of it. And that took years. And that was a bridge project in Jackson. So mitigating those kind of issues to put a third lane would have taken a long, long time. I'm glad we did that project. Every time I go through that, I'm really proud of the results. So it's more, as a matter of fact, yes, we are going to be extending the US 23 to 96, and we are putting one on 96. between 275 and Kensington Road, that's gonna start this year. Because that corridor has almost similar traffic pattern. If you're going into Detroit in the morning, there's congestion. And then you're coming out to Novi area, going into Brighton, you see congestion, but we have a wide shoulder there that's not being used. So the idea is to fix that, put the gantries on and use that shoulder as a lane. So thank you for that question.
Good to talk.
So should we worry about the bridges when we are passing through over there to see any problem with bridges like we just saw it in Pittsburgh? So our bridges are safe, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So there is no urgency for the bridge infrastructure.
No, well, there's a federal guidelines that we have to inspect our bridges and to report every 2 years. And there's just no ifs and buts about it. This is a safety issue. Yes, and we do that religiously.
But we don't have some rehabilitation projects, right? Coming up with the infrastructure project.
Oh, yes, I believe Michigan is going to get $563 million over 5 years to fix our bridges. That's about $110 million a year, something. 103, $105 million a year, but for the next 5 years.
All right.
Just a follow-up.
Yeah.
So right now, it's all about infrastructure. Money's coming from Washington, 3.5 billion, that was a down payment. How long do you foresee this infrastructure boom, if you will? 5, 10 years, 15 years? As we start to, really look at our curriculum and where we're gonna, invest our dollars, it's just,
I think it's a good point. What I'm hoping is that when we are done with spending the government's money, $3.5 billion, and we finish all these 49 projects, we can take it to the people of the state to say, this is what happens when you give us money to fix our roads, right? And if you give us more money, you're gonna get this kind of results. That's really my hope. The IIJA is obviously an opportunity, it's a 5-year span, but I think the issue is more than just that. The issue is electric vehicles are coming. That means people are not buying gas anymore. What are you going to do to replace that revenue collect from gas? Because the way we fund our infrastructure right now is through gas tax. And if people are not buying gas, you're not collecting gas tax, you got to replace that in somewhere. Vehicle registration and gas tax, that's how we fund it. So that, I think, to me, is a big challenge. How we keep that revenue.
Yes, sir. Speaking about electric vehicles, it's clearly they're going to be the future. But when it comes to electric vehicles, we're seeing that the biggest bottleneck is going to be not with the Department of Transport, but with the Department of Energy. The issue in comparison between, let's say, the United States and Europe is that a lot of the energy providers in Europe are public entities, whereas in the United States, they're private and they're not incentivized to invest environmentally, and most of them are quite often. Is this something that MDOT is considering as the energy requirement shifts more between from gasoline and fossil fuels to electrical demand?
Well, again, good point, right? I testified in front of the House committee today, and the issue of how do we replace gas tax with EVs coming in the market is part of the conversation. Your point about that, I agree, but again, I think it's more of a Department of Energy issue, not so much transportation. Our thing is to make sure that we have infrastructure that can support that. But as far as all the other regulations, I think that's more.
So let's give our distinguished speaker another round of applause. Appreciate your presence here and looking forward for the next one. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it.